On today's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast, we are back after the Christmas break and ready to dive straight into the Premier League action. We're going to be breaking down the weekend's biggest games, including Liverpool's huge 4-2 victory over Newcastle, Fulham and Forest both picking up shock results and 3 points each, as well as the top four race being blown wide open, City, Villa and Spurs all winning this weekend, and who knows who's going to be topping that table in a few weeks' time. Also, stick around for the end of the episode because we have more Football Tennable for you, so you can play along at home as well.
Happy New Year and welcome back to the Football Fellowship podcast. That was Toby with the intro, and of course he's joined by myself, Mevin. The football fixtures over the festive period have been coming thick and fast. Goals, red cards, everything you can expect for and more. And the best way to start is just to get straight back into it with Liverpool 4, Newcastle United 2. What did you make of the game, Toby?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from this game was the record that was broken in this game. It was the highest XG that a team has put out since records began in 2010, which is crazy. It was over 7 for Liverpool. And to even be able to say that Liverpool should have scored more than 4 goals in this game, I think really sums it up. It was a really dominant display from Liverpool. Fantastic attacking output as we have seen so far this season, and a pretty poor Newcastle display which we have seen so far in recent weeks.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought Liverpool were fantastic in this game for the most part. I think that first half an hour, I do want to give Newcastle some credit because I do think that they stifled Liverpool really well. Liverpool were still getting chances but were unable to convert them, and obviously the first place out is of course the Salah missed penalty. What did you think of it, first of all? Because I've seen a lot of people saying, Liverpool players have been diving. Diaz for the first one, Jota obviously for the second one. Let's talk about both of them. What did you make of Diaz's one and Jota's one? Because I'll let you go first because obviously I'm biased being a Liverpool fan.
For me, the first one was 100% a penalty. You could see that his back leg was clipped and he went over. And I always say this in terms of penalties. When you're a striker running full speed, it does not take much contact for one leg to tumble you over. It may have looked like he sort of fell and probably made the most of it. He probably did, but even then the contact was still enough to take a player down and cause a penalty. And just touching on that penalty as well, Salah's first penalty was pretty terrible. He struggled with penalties in sort of recent seasons, and he went for that tactic of just trying to hit it hard, no direction on it. Dubravka stood his ground and saved it. Which he then obviously did redeem with that second penalty, which was taken really nicely, a lot more comfortable and a lot better placement, as opposed to just whacking it. The second one, in terms of whether it was a penalty or not, I'm not too sure. It was a lot weaker than that first one for me. I think Jota, he oversold it. I think, if anything, there was contact on Jota's trailing leg again, which he was running very fast. It could have been enough. But just his body language, I think in the slow motion, it looked like he threw himself down as opposed to actually being tripped like it was with Diaz. Seen them given, but I think if that was a penalty that decides a game, in this case it probably ultimately didn't, then I think we could have been talking about it a lot more. But yeah, very soft, I think, that second one.
Yeah, do you know what? I'll agree with you on that. I think the Diaz one was, and I think the Jota one was as well, but I just think that, the way I think because he sees the open goal and he thinks to himself he's going to tap the ball in the back of the net, and then he realises, oh no, I've actually taken the ball a bit too far, goes down, remembering the fact that Dubravka just touched him. And, I would, if that was given against me, I'd be fuming. And to be fair, maybe even with the Diaz one as well. So I will take your word for it. But yeah, apart from the penalties, I do think that Liverpool really dominated this game. 62% possession, 34 shots, 15 on target, 9 big chances. And if it wasn't for the fact that Dubravka having a worldie of a game, I think Liverpool could have been, way ahead of this game, could have absolutely obliterated Newcastle. And it goes to show that, even without the main number one goalkeeper, Nick Pope, that they do have options and, some really good options. Dubravka is clearly a Premier League goalkeeper. But I do think Liverpool also didn't help themselves. They did miss a lot of their chances on the day. I think Núñez was really frustrating offside a lot of times, could have done better with his chances. I think Luis Diaz had an all-round very good game, but just the final product wasn't quite there. I think it's one where, eventually Liverpool are going to come into a situation which they're not going to have as many chances as they did on the day, and they need to be a bit more clinical. And that isn't going to be helped by the fact that Mo Salah is going away to the African Cup of Nations with Egypt. And, the next month of Premier League football is going to be really crucial for Liverpool. But Newcastle, they did get 2 goals, defended, resolutely at times, but we really didn't see much of them, did we, Toby?
No, they really. I think in like you said in that first half, they contained Liverpool very well, but I think throughout most of the game they weren't able to probably play the game that they wanted to. They weren't really able to carry that ball forward very much. They did create a few chances and took those chances really well, getting 2 goals from only, I think, 5 shots they had in the whole game. And they were taken really well. Isak's finish was lovely in particular, opened it up his body well after a nice ball from Gordon to put it past Alisson. And like you said, on another day, if Liverpool hadn't have finished chances potentially even worse than they did, it could have ended up 2-2. But overall, yeah, like you've said, with Liverpool missing Salah potentially in the next month, this for me was one of the best games he's had all season, and that's saying a lot because he has been exceptional this season. He has really stepped up in terms of creative output and being the main man again in that team. I think maybe the last 2 or 3 seasons there have been a few other players who have sort of levelled, or Mo Salah may have dropped a little bit and they have sort of levelled up, but this season he is just miles ahead of anyone probably in the whole league for me. And this game in particular, he created almost all of the goals came from him or were scored by him, whether they were direct assists or in terms of Curtis Jones's goal was again made by Salah with a lovely ball through into Jota, who then squared it into Jones. He was just so good. And if I was a Liverpool fan, if I was you, Mev, I would be nervous because I can really see a drop coming without Salah because he has been that good.
Yeah, I agree. I think this Liverpool squad is capable of doing well without Salah. It's just the fact that when you lose arguably your best player, that it's always going to be hard no matter what. I think the timing of Diogo Jota coming back to fitness from his injury has helped and boosted the side massively. I think especially against Man United, Liverpool were crying out for a forward like Diogo Jota who could just put the ball in the back of the net. He's arguably our most clinical finisher. And when you've got Mo Salah in the squad, that is saying something. I think Liverpool will be fine. It's just, can they maintain the high standards? You've got some difficult fixtures against Chelsea at home and Arsenal away in the league, which if Salah does go far with Egypt will be an issue. I think they've also got the FA Cup tie against Arsenal, of course, next weekend, and they've also got Fulham both legs home and away in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. Liverpool's whole season could depend on how well the next 6 or so weeks go. They've still got the Europa League, of course, but Liverpool were probably going to be one of the favourites for that. And this is a huge opportunity to go far in multiple competitions with the squad that they have, probably ahead of schedule, as a lot of people are saying. Very exciting times, a little bit nerve-wracking as well. But I think, this Liverpool squad under Jurgen Klopp, I think if Jurgen Klopp we trust more than anyone else, Liverpool can probably do the business, I reckon.
Yeah, you've still got some quality options going forward. I think Diaz is coming into his stride a little bit more this season. I think we've seen in this game particularly, there was a few instances where we saw him really sort of be a much more direct and more confident dribbler, cutting in on that right foot. We've seen that so many times throughout his Liverpool career and before at Porto, where he'll cut in and shoot. And I think with Salah out of the team, he may be sort of the more go-to man in terms of cutting in and finding those half spaces from out wide. And then, like you said, Diaz, Jota, Gakpo, Nunez. Yeah, it's a very, very decent attacking options. It's just that Salah is so good, not that the other players won't be able to do it. And hopefully for Liverpool fans, I'm sure they'll be able to keep it up to an extent.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we finish off talking about this game, Newcastle, because they've been suffering for a long time now, a lot of injuries, the results are not going their way anymore. They're kind of slipping in the top 4 race, out of the Champions League as well. January transfer window is open. Do you see Newcastle doing any business, and if so, where?
I mean, they've obviously got the capacity to do a lot of business. How much they would have to spend without sort of breaching financial fair play at the moment, I'm not too sure. I'm trying to think where they would sort of need most reinforcements. It'd probably be a winger, I'd say. I think that would be something that they have potentially struggled with in terms of depth. I've really liked Anthony Gordon this season. He's been fantastic. But I think when we've seen sort of Wilson, Isak, Almiron all be injured, and Gordon either playing up front on the right wing and Joe Linton pushing up into left wing outside of his favoured central midfield position, it has shown potentially that there is a weakness in terms of depth, and the downgrade in terms of quality is quite high. So I think potentially another winger could be good for them. Besides that, I don't think they're actually too bad in terms of depth and in terms of who they could sign. Potentially a left back is always the one that's floating around, with Dan Burn sort of being the mainstay left back and Livramento playing on either side as a backup. So potentially a left back, but I think a winger and potentially having that competition for a winger as well, someone of really high quality, would only do them good. Is there any position you think in particular that they could try and strengthen in January?
Well, it's tough because I do agree on the forward front. I think they've got enough numbers. The issue is that they're all just injury prone. I mean, Callum Wilson, Harvey Barnes, Almiron, all of them, they're all just injured a little bit too often. You don't have someone who's there every week and you can count on them. I also think someone in midfield, especially, I think, with Tonali's 9 months ban, he's only going to be back for the next season. So there's a lot of, they were counting on him to play a big part of the season going forward, and he's unable to do that. I also think that's meant that there's been an over-reliance on the rest of the midfielders. So, I don't know, if you can maybe loan Calvin Phillips or something, I think, a short-term solution like that will be really good. Also, they've been linked with bringing a midfielder from Saudi Arabia. The likes of Ruben Neves has been touted, but if that can actually be pulled off or not, we'll have to wait and see. But I think for me, a midfielder. But I think, to be fair, I think Newcastle will take any sort of recruitment. I think it's going to be a player that's either versatile to help out with the squad management at the moment, or a player who can enable another player to be versatile. So how they go about managing that transfer and the squad in general will have to remain to be seen. But we should talk about another team who have also started to falter a little bit. No win in the last 3, which is Arsenal, who lost away to Fulham 2-1. What did you make of the game? I'm assuming you watched it.
Yeah, I unfortunately watched this game and the West Ham game that came before, and the most frustrating thing for me is that they were almost identical in terms of Arsenal performance. The main sort of keywords I've got in my notes are just slow, unmotivated, just like lackadaisical, just really careless, and I think that really stood out in terms of the comparison to last season. Last season we were so quick, we were so free-flowing, we were really fun to watch. We were, quick was the key word. Quick in transition and quick. Even when we had possession up in the high areas of the pitch against a low block, we were still passing it around quick. Still that sense of urgency every time we had the ball. And these last 2 games in particular have been the complete opposite of that. It's been a real struggle, and going from the West Ham game where we played so poorly and we had all of these problems to then going into the Fulham game and it being exactly the same with almost no change. We changed 3 players from the starting 11, but the performance was exactly the same, which was really, really disappointing.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially over a Christmas period in which the fixtures are going to come in thick and fast, and you don't have too many injuries to key players as well. I think it's just been surprising, really, especially after the West Ham result in particular, because I think you can have one of those performances where you don't play well on the day, but it's how you respond, and to not respond at all, really, because obviously Arsenal got the goal through Bukayo Saka very early on. It was actually really well worked. Timothy Castagne for Fulham went up the right hand side and he got completely caught out. David Raya caught the ball from his cross, he then put it out, and the ball ended up at Martinelli. Martinelli ended up having the shot from Leno, and then he powered it straight to Saka. And then you think to yourself, okay, here's the response. Here's Arsenal saying, no, that was a one-off. Here we go. And then from there, I do agree, it did go completely flat, and it allowed Fulham to get back into the game. A Fulham side who, a couple of weeks on the podcast, we were raving about, 2 5-0 wins in a row. They've had a bit of a iffy Christmas period as well. They've been missing key players like Raul Jimenez as well, who played fantastically well in this game, leading the line. But it was really disappointing. And it does lead to the question of, is this... You can have one bad result, but when does bad result become poor form? And what do Arsenal need to change? Is it just they need to freshen up the legs a little bit? Or do you think there's something tactically? Or do you think it's just mental?
For me, it's probably a combination of, I'd say, tactically and mental. I think the first 10 to 15 games of the season, our defence was the best aspect of our game. We controlled the games really well, and we really, really shut out any space, particularly in between the midfield and the defensive lines. And I think in the last 4 or 5 games, that has really seemed to open up. I'm not sure exactly why. I think part of it may be Declan Rice stepping forward a little bit further, trying to help the attack due to our chance creations problems, which is obviously an own issue in itself. But when he is moving forward, it seems to be there's a lot more space in behind, and it seems that he's having to make these obviously very impressive sort of tackles in to prevent other teams transitioning. But I think his tackle numbers and interception numbers being so high is more of a problem caused by the way we aren't able to control games recently. And this was really evident in the Fulham game. Their first goal, there was just so much space, and it looked really easy for them to pass their way through. And I think that's a big worry because all season we have had chance creations problems. But now if it's looking like we're unable to control the games defensively, that's our key strength that has won us so many points this season that's starting to falter as well. And in terms of mentality, I think we've obviously seen Zinchenko had a very poor game against West Ham, which didn't help us moving the ball forward and keeping possession, because when he has a good game, he's one of the best players on the pitch. But he struggled, had a little injury. Kivior then came in, who for me isn't a left-back, and I think he really struggled to play that Zinchenko role inverting. He is more of a natural centre-back. And then the same as Jesus, again, one of the best players on the pitch. When he's on his day, playing against West Ham, didn't have a good game. And then Nketiah comes in and drops an even worse performance and is a completely different player. He looked really lazy, almost no movement in the front line. And it seems like even when we're bringing in players to try and come in and have better games than the players who've had bad games, they're also having bad games, and it's making no difference at all. So I think it must be that combination of the tactics and the mentality. What needs to change in terms of tactics, I'm not too sure. It seems we're really struggling to get Saka and Martinelli into games recently. I know they obviously combined for the first goal in this Fulham game, but I think Martinelli cutting in like that and having a shot, that's the first time I feel like I've seen that in a month or two. It seems like he's getting really pushed out far wide by the defending teams. Martinelli and Saka both being really, really wide and struggling to be able to combine with Odegaard, White, Zinchenko, Havertz to sort of make those spaces like we did last season in that sort of corner of the penalty box where they always used to finish from. I'm not sure whether it's other teams have sort of sussed us out a bit and are able to stop that and we're unable to work out a new route to get to goal. I'm not sure, but hopefully Arteta can sort of see that and try and fix it, because it doesn't look like much is changing and it's becoming a bit of a worry.
Yeah, well, I don't know what else to add to that. I think you've summed it up in its entirety really well, actually. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm just going to talk about Fulham, actually, because, like I said, had a bit of a rocky Christmas period, but they played really well, like you mentioned as well. I think, Paulinho was excellent from a defensive standpoint. I think Raul Jimenez, holding the ball, being that, the guy to lead the line and lead it really well. I think Willian, who really should be a pensioner at this point, is still doing bits on the wing. And I think one person who, hasn't really forced his way into the Fulham squad as often as he probably like himself is Tom Kearney, because I thought he was absolutely excellent. He was excellent for Fulham in the Championship as well. Hasn't really worked out for him, and I think what he needs a bit more is the attacking output, and that's exactly what he had from him in this game. I think going forward, he really linked up the play well, putting nice 1-2 touches around Arsenal players, really finding other Fulham players in space and really allowing the team to progress further up the pitch. I think it's the first time I've seen that performance from him with my own eyes, and I've thought to myself, wow, not only does he look like a Premier League player, he looks like one of the best players in this Fulham side, and that's not necessarily something you think about with Tom Kearney. You normally think of the likes of Leno, Adebayo, Castagna, Willian, the others, but he really stepped up to the plate. I was really, really impressed with him against Arsenal, and long may continue for his sake and Fulham's sake as well. Arsenal, we'll talk about them a little bit. I asked you previously, do you think they need to sign someone in January?
Yeah, I mean, the big one that I feel like we have to mention is Ivan Toney. It seems like there's a lot of rumours going around that we are contacting his representatives and we are trying to get that move to be done. I think it would be good. I think having the choice of Toney or Jesus is really good. I don't think Toney should come in and start every single game. I think they will vary depending on who the opposition is and how the game is going. Potentially even playing them at the same time. Playing Jesus on the left, who's played there before and he's done really, really well. Just gives us a bit more rotation in that front three. I think the most I'd want to spend is probably 60 million on Toney. I think there's probably better, younger options out there, potentially, in terms of better value for money. He's a fantastic player, but again, he's been out for a while, potentially not match fit. Lots of different conversations on why he may not be a good signing for Arsenal. Other positions that potentially we may need to look into is, again, I think in the midfield. It doesn't look like, besides sort of that midfield three of Havertz, Rice and Odegaard, with Vieira still injured, if one of those sort of gets injured or has a bad game, it doesn't look like there's many options to come on in that position. So that may be an area to look in. Just another squad player, I think, someone young, someone who can I think add a bit more energy into that midfield would be really good.
Yeah, I agree. I think someone up front maybe, but I do also think Arsenal did have chance in this game. I think Bukayo Saka he had that chance at the back post where if he just converts it and doesn't sky way over the bar, all you can see yourself Arsenal winning the game 2-1 rather than it being Fulham. So I think at times the Arsenal forwards themselves need to be a bit more clinical. I think they've scored the least goals of the top 5 in the league at this moment in time, but they've only like maybe 5 or 4, maybe even 4 off the next the team. So I think it's just a crucial goal and a crucial moment. And is that worth, that could be worth however many points. That could be priceless, really, when you think about it. So, yeah, I think someone, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a centre striker, just even a wide player, just someone to put the ball in the back of the net when that chance comes is something Arsenal definitely need. Should we then move on to the other side who lost 2-1 away from home on this weekend, which was Manchester United, coming on the back of beating Aston Villa with a terrific 3-2 comeback win at Old Trafford. Momentum was with them, and maybe looking on the up, but stumbled by a fantastic Nottingham Forest and a Nuno Espirito Santo side.
Yeah, huge victory for Nottingham, and one I think they needed. They've obviously maybe have their new manager bounce a little bit. They are struggling for points recently, and they were creeping slowly down towards that relegation zone. They're still obviously going to be looking over their shoulders, but a win like this is absolutely huge. I didn't watch all of this game, and I feel from what I've heard from the game, from yourself, Mev, who did watch it, and from others who did, that it was a bit of a stinker, especially in that first half. It seemed like there was, even when I was watching the highlights of Match of the Day, it seemed, I can't even remember if there was any highlights from the first half. They may have just gone straight into the second, to be honest. But the second half picked up and was a really, really good half and a really good performance from Forest. Dominguez getting that first goal, which was huge for them. And even the Man United goal, when they did equalise, it was from a Nottingham Forest mistake. It was from Matt Turner giving the ball to Garnacho, which he did win very well. Garnacho played into Rashford, who finished it nicely. But this could have been a 2-0 victory for Forest, which looks even more comprehensive and potentially displayed how well they did play in that game.
Yeah, I think Nottingham Forest missed a trick, because I think in that first half they were playing very defensively as the side lower down in the table compared to the great Man United. But I think really Man United also had the same game plan of sticking back and letting Nottingham Forest come onto them, which I don't understand really, because as soon as Man United went 1-0 down, they started playing a lot better. It's almost as if they need to be a goal or maybe multiple goals down in order to play really well, which I don't understand. Just take the initiative from the off and you might be 2 or 3 up to the good before the other team has a chance to respond. But Nottingham Forest, you can understand them playing defensively in that first half, and I think they did. But in that second half, they really thought to themselves, no, okay, we can do something here. And they did. I think they were the better side on the day. I think they thoroughly deserved the win on the day, if I'm being completely honest. Man United didn't deserve the win. And, when Dominguez did put that ball in the back of the net for 1-0, I thought it was a fantastic goal and what they deserved. Because I do think that Man United in that second half, not only was it Nottingham Forest, I think also it was Erik Ten Hag's changes at half-time. The one to bring off Kobe Mainoo and bring on Scott McTominay really, really, really hampered them, I think, in my opinion, because of the fact that when you look back at the goals, and even the Morgan Gibbs-White goal for the winner, they're almost identical. And the fact that the ball comes from the right-hand side of Nottingham Forest against the left-hand side of Man United, ball gets put into the edge of the box or nearabouts, and it just, a lovely finish into the far corner away from Onana. And I think that it happened both times. And both times I questioned myself, where's the midfield of Man United? And that's a running theme for this entire season. But the fact that the defensive line drops off far too deep, and I think they have to because of the fact that they're low on confidence, they're low on form at the moment in time as well, conceding so many goals. And the fact that, they've got ageing midfielders in the likes of Johnny Evans, so they need to keep that high line against the attacking forwards of Nottingham Forest. So that when they do drop, the midfield then has to be there, but the midfield often isn't there. So the fact Scott McTominay could easily have been in both those positions for both Dominguez and Morgan Gibbs-White. And if not him, one of the others, maybe like Eriksen, maybe like Bruno. But they're more attacking-minded players. It's not necessarily their responsibility. But in the game, to be able to see the fact that, oh no, the man's free on the edge of the box there, we need to man mark him and stop the ball from getting to him because he's got a great chance. And to not have that foresight. And I think, got summed up towards the end of the game where, Man United went 2-1 down and they're going for it. And then the whole midfield then flips. And then Scott McTominay ends up being the furthest forward midfielder, and then Bruno and Eriksen are the ones playing deeper back. I just thought to myself, what a weird performance, what a weird team in general Man United are. And I just thought to myself, yeah, for the first time I did think to myself, Erik Ten Haag isn't good enough with the substitutions, and is he good enough to be Man United manager? And I maybe changed my mind on that.
Yeah, I've got that written down for both goals. They had so much space, Nottingham Forest. I couldn't believe it, especially the first goal. It seemed when that pass came in, it just completely opened. It Dominguez had a magnet and it just pushed everyone away, and the ball just came to him and he could just slot it in the bottom corner. It was really, really poor. I was really disappointed to see that from Man United, because their defence generally has been something I've actually praised this season, and somewhere where I think they have been pretty decent. And I think you're right that defensive inadequacy in those goals is not because of the backline, but because of the midfield and the lack of covering, the lack of communication between defence and midfield that caused those spaces to come up just outside the edge of the area. And Gibbs White took advantage of that fully. Really, really nice finish. And yeah, like you've said, when you see a game like this, not necessarily the result in terms of losing to Forest, but in terms of the way that it was lost, in that first half especially, with United sitting back against Nottingham Forest, who are potential relegation contenders, there must be, why? Just why? I don't understand it. I know the team is probably low in confidence. They want to try and play this sort of quick transition counter-attack football, Man United, but they've got to give a little bit of something. Fair play to Garnacho again. I think he was probably one of the only positives in this game. He is playing really, really well at the moment. He seems to be the only sort of wide player for Man United who's creating chances and playing as a real winger. I know we've seen that with Rashford. Has been extremely frustrating this season. It seems whenever he picks up the ball on the wing, he's not crossing it, he's not passing it, he's just dribbling into players or shooting. Whereas Garnacho, when he picks up that ball, it feels like something's going to happen. But besides that, it is looking pretty dire for Man United. And like you say, to watch this one game and start to doubt Ten Hag, who I think we both agree generally has been a very decent manager throughout his career, clearly something is not clicking. And like you said, yeah, to see it just from one game like this, watching it and having doubts, I think says a lot.
Yeah, and I also think that this Man United squad isn't good enough. I also want to make that very clear in itself, because yes, I now starting to have my doubts about Erik Ten Haag, and I'm not sure he's good enough, because I think another manager should be able to get more out of these players. However, it has been a cycle we've been saying for, ever since Sir Alex Ferguson left. We've been saying about every single manager since, that with the players that they have at their disposal, they should be doing better. But now I think the manager is taking away from the team, and I think with the substitutions, I thought he made the team worse. That's when now I thought to myself, okay, fine, I think Ten Hag is now really putting himself in trouble, because with the new ownership group coming in as well, with Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, do they want to maybe have a new person in charge, be the new face of Man United? They might want that as well. Are they also going to invest money into a manager they're not necessarily 100% sure of? We credited, and I really like the fact that Ten Hag has, been very bold and open and honest in his first season. And it feels like he's just gone away from that this season. And I think maybe some of it is deflection, because the things aren't going his way. So you're really trying to see him defend his team and trying to motivate his team. But I just don't think that these players are good enough. And they've shown it time and time again that they aren't good enough week in, week out. So I think it's one where I think Man United, for the owners, I think it's very easy. I think you just get rid of the whole lot. I think just bomb the whole squad, bomb the whole back dressing room, the manager, everyone behind the scenes, and you just start afresh, personally. Quick word on Nottingham Forest, because we haven't really talked about them much. We've really talked about Man United. Fantastic start for Nuno Espirito Santos as manager. Obviously, they had that win against Newcastle United as well on Boxing Day, with Chris Will with a magnificent hat-trick, all with his left foot as well as his weaker foot. Where can you see them going for the rest of the season under Nuno?
Yeah, I think even before Nuno came in, they have had some good games this season. I think they've got a really decent squad for where they are sort of in the league in terms of stature and where they probably end up finishing. So I think it was probably, it's difficult to say whether it's a good appointment and Cooper being sacked was just, or if it was harsh. I'm not too sure. For me, it's not much of a big upgrade, but I think Santo will be able to get a decent performance out of Forest. I think they will be safe. They'll probably be finishing just above the relegation zone for me. They've got a decent squad. I'd like them to stay up because I think they've got some really good players, and I think they can press on sort of over the coming seasons. And Santo could probably get a decent season out of them, especially the way they play three back, and obviously we know how he played with Wolves was very similar. So yeah, I like Forest, and I hope they can keep picking up points.
Yeah, I agree. I think Nuno will do a really solid job for them, for the club where they are at the moment, maybe even take them higher up in the table. The only problem I do have with Nuno is, can I see him being manager of Nottingham Forest in 18 months' time? Further than that, not really. And maybe it's just a cycle of being a side recently promoted to the Premier League, where maybe you will end up having a high turnover of managers. But I just personally don't think he'll still be in charge come the end of next season. So that's my only issue. I think he's maybe more of a stopgap with the results not turning out how Steve Cooper would have wanted it to go. But then moving on to Aston Villa 3, Burnley 2. And I expected this to be a lot more comfortable than it turned out to be for Aston Villa. Of course, losing to Man United 3-2, which would have been bitterly disappointing for them and Unai Emery. And, they did get the win in the end, but only just because Burnley put in a really solid performance, didn't they?
Yeah, I think Company had really highlighted a weakness in Villa's side, being that high backline and being able to exploit that. It seemed for most of the game they were looking for through balls over the top, especially through to Foster, who we saw he had one pretty early chance, I think, that was ruled... he scored and that was ruled out for offside. He then, on Burnley's second goal, did exactly the same and was able to score. I think it was a clear plan from Company they were happy to sacrifice possession, which they have tried to maintain a lot this season, and just go for that as the main route to try and attack Villa. And I think it was evident even in this game for Villa that when they did win that ball and they were moving it quickly up the pitch, a lot of their team was going, and it did leave a lot of space in behind for Burnley, which they were able to exploit.
Yeah, I think you've absolutely nailed it, mate, to be honest, because I remember thinking again when Aston Villa were playing Arsenal and Man City in early December, that high line was immaculate. It was so well performed and timed. But if you have a game where your players aren't quite at it, maybe not at 100%, and it's very easy then to break that line with one good run, one good pass. And what really interested me was the fact that Burnley weren't going straight for the target man. They were trying to put putting long balls into an area just in front of the back four, so someone had the chance to flick it on, which I also thought allowed for Aston Villa defenders to second guess themselves maybe a little bit and think to themselves, okay, maybe I'm going to go for that. Oh wait, I'm not. And then all of a sudden the whole back line is 2 are going forward, 2 are going back, and they're not all right there. And I think that was, just that one simple thing was a fantastic game plan from Vincent Kompany going into this game. And yeah, it was really surprising that the fact that they did get caught out. But, I think Burnley thoroughly deserved it. Bailey obviously put them ahead early on through Watkins' assist, which was actually, funnily, a ball over the top from them. But then Goodmanson, with his free kick, put the ball in the back post to O'Shea, who then put it to Amdouni with a finish. And I thought to myself, Burnley have a great chance. But then they had Sanderberg sent off, and you thought to yourself at that moment in time, the game was all over. 2 yellows. Do you think they were both deserved?
Yeah, I think so. I think especially that second one was just a really, really silly challenge. And yeah, deservedly a second yellow. I think when you're a centre mid playing in the Prem, any sort of challenge like that, deliberately stop the play where you're not going for the ball, is going to be yellow.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another issue that Vincent Kompany had with the referee at the end of the game was the fact that apparently Diego Carlos handballed it, and he wasn't very happy because if he did handball it, then he feels like it should have been a red card, potentially even a free kick. Did you see it? What did you make of that one?
Yeah, it was difficult. I understand why it wasn't given. I think the way it sort of came up and the way Carlos was moving, I think it was kind of similar to the Odegaard one the other day, where it seemed like such an obvious handball, but I think the referees probably looked at the context of how it happened more than sort of the impact, which makes it look like a bad decision. So I can understand why Kompany's angry, and I think probably Kompany complaining about that is probably to protect his players because they haven't come away with anything despite playing really well.
Yeah, I think that's a classic managerial tactic. But then we've got the last one to talk about as well. The penalty, which of course Aston Villa get, and then Douglas Luiz, who we've been talking about all season, having a fantastic season, converted from the spot. Very lucky actually, because I think he hits a crossbar, hits the ground, and then bounces at the back of the crossbar, and then finally back into the back of the net. But Duran was taken down. Vincent Kompany said the contact was light. I agree, but I do think it's a penalty. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly the same. Light, but a penalty. Similar to the Diaz one we were speaking about earlier, really.
Yeah, completely agree. But yeah, Aston Villa finally, on the end of the day, get the 3 points, remain second in the league. Are they serious title contenders, or do you think just a top 4 finish is fine for them?
I think at the moment I think we have to say if the title race is starting now, which because of how close the teams are and potentially how early in the season it is, we've still got a long way to go. I think it'll be sort of the next 6 or 7 we'll have a definite title race after that. I think we've got to have all 5 of those teams in there. We've got to have City, Liverpool, Villa, Arsenal and Tottenham. They're all within, I think, 5 points of each other now. It's super close. They've all had spells where they've looked like they could go on a really good run. So I think we have to keep them in there. I think if we're keeping Arsenal in there, which some people probably aren't, then I think we probably have to keep Villa in there as well.
Yeah, very interesting point actually. I really like that take because I don't think Villa are in the title race. I mean, sure, they're there at the moment in time, but also you've got to think about the fact that they've got the Europa Conference League. This is the first time that this Aston Villa squad has been going for the title, supposedly. So I don't think experience-wise they'll be all there. I do expect these players should drop off at some point and have a purple patch. I suppose they haven't really had that spell like we talked about earlier with Arsenal. Liverpool have had it, Man City have had it, Arsenal have had it. They kind of all got theirs out of the way early on in the season, whereas Aston Villa still haven't really had a bad spell. They've had bad games individually, but they haven't had 4 or 5 games where they've dropped a lot of points you'd expect them to get. So for me, I don't think they're in the title race. I think for top 4, I don't think they're a shoe-in either for that, I'll be honest. I think Spurs, who are having an upturn in form at this moment in time, are a potential threat to them. I think Newcastle, you can never count them out either. I think they'll be very happy with where they are, Aston Villa fans and Aston Villa in general, and I think they should thoroughly look forward to it. Burnley played really well, tried the hardest. They did against Liverpool as well in midweek, but it wasn't quite enough. What do you think they have to do?
For me, I'm not sure. I think this game was a really good game for them. I think they need to take away the positives. I think they did still look quite open. I think Villa, as much as Burnley sort of went over the top and attacked them, I think Villa really did that to them as well. And they sent a lot of men forward because of how open Burnley have looked at times this season. But in terms of the midfield and the attack, I think it was a good game for them. I think they were able to control it in the small spells that they had and played well. It is just still defensively. They look very open, and I think they're probably... If I had to put money on it now, I'd say they are going to be going down, unfortunately, just because of that defence. They do look very, very open, but who knows? If they can score 2 goals against Villa away from home, I'm sure they can do that in other games and pick up points as well. So, not too sure. Just a way off for me yet, though. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think the squad simply just isn't good enough, and they're trying to put in a fight more often now, but they really should have done it earlier in the season to really give themselves any chance, because unlike their newly promoted side with them, Luton Town, who just narrowly lost out to Chelsea 3-2, I do think Luton put in a lot of work and a lot of effort, from the get-go, and they haven't been thrashed in too many games so far this season, and it looked like for a second they might have been against Chelsea, but they ended up fighting back towards the end.
Yeah, this second half performance from Luton was absolutely fantastic. Scored 2 goals and hit the bar twice, I think, and also had a goal ruled out. They could have had 5 goals if not for an inch more onside and the crossbar being an inch higher. Really, really good second half from Luton. I think it's a shame because they could have really pressed and got these goals in the first half, I think. I don't think there was much change from Chelsea between the halves. I think it was just the way that Luton changed. In that first half, they sat back and tried to probably wait until the second half to attack. But they should have just gone for it from the start and they could have won this game because they were so, so good. There's so much energy in that Luton side, especially when they're playing at home, and so much confidence as well. And I think that's something I really underestimated in terms of going into the season. I think I wanted didn't want to get sucked into the hype of Luton and their stadium and their fans and stuff, and I just looked at their squad and thought that their quality wasn't good enough. But that is actually something that has been huge for them, and it was really, really clear in this game. And to be honest, I was surprised that they didn't get another one and make it 3-3, because they probably deserved it. First half, Chelsea, to go 3-0 up, they did play well and they did attack well. There were some nice combinations, and the central point of that obviously being Cole Palmer. But just a shame for Luton, because they could have come out of this game with something.
Yeah, they really could have, couldn't they? It's such a shame, but I think, it goes to show how dominant Chelsea actually were in that first half of that game. I mean, they only had an XG of 1.5, but they still managed to get 3 goals before the 70th minute, and Luton started their comeback, really. But I do think to myself that, this Chelsea side, for the first time in weeks, I've really seen them dominate a game of football. I know you can make an argument that, it's only Luton. But Luton, like you said, have been playing really well this season and not been giving anyone an easy game. I mean, we know that as Liverpool and Arsenal fans. We've struggled against Luton in our performances as well. But I think, that front four that it was for Chelsea, the one with Broja up top, Jackson off the left, Palmer in kind of like a 10 position, and Noni Madueke off the right. I think that really gave Luton a lot of trouble. I think the fluidity between the four of them, I think the pace, the power, and I think just the skillfulness and the trickery, all of them were absolutely added today. I think Broja kind of struggled the most, but I think all four were like really good going forward and really showed Chelsea, that they got some really talented players on the books. And I think one man in particular, Cole Palmer, 2 goals on the day, and honestly, what a fantastic performance by him. And for his third finish especially, I mean, I've gotten it down here like world class, because first of all, he rounds Kaminsky, the goalkeeper, and then he dummies the defender Osho on the line, and then he wrong foots the third Luton Town defender to hit to put the ball in the back of the net with his weaker foot. And I just thought to myself, if that was Mo Salah, if that was Bukayo Saka, we'd all be saying that is a world class finish and be absolutely raving about it. So I don't want that particular finish to be, underlooked because of the fact that it's Cole Palmer and it's Chelsea and they're not doing so well this season. But I just think Palmer has, arguably has been, signing of the season so far, despite the fact that he's playing for a very poor team at this moment in time. But Chelsea, 2 wins in a row now. Obviously, we've said this all season about can they find some consistency, but what do you make of Cole Palmer? Because where do you think his ceiling could be?
Yeah, I think we touched on this. I can't remember when. I think it was maybe a month or 2 ago when Chelsea were going through quite a poor spell in terms of results, and Cole Palmer was still playing pretty well. I think we both said that we'd like to see him in the central role and that he can be the person to pull the strings. The way Chelsea, I think, were playing in terms of having Gallagher, Caicedo and Fernandes just didn't work. Neither of them is a natural 10, and I think in that Poch system you need someone who can sit right up alongside the striker and pull the strings from that central attacking midfield position. And Palmer is exactly that man. I think sometimes he's actually played up front for City, almost as that false 9 role that they used to have, and it suits him really, really well. It allows those wingers to get wide and dribble in, and then have Palmer just sit in there, play a 1-2 with them, play it into Palmer, who can then touch and shoot, or play it into Palmer and he can play it off into the striker. It works really, really well, and I think this game summed it up. He was fantastic. And like you've said, yeah, he just needed the game time. I think at City we did see really good moments from him. Maybe he just wasn't quite the right type of player under Pep Guardiola. We know he likes a very specific player in a very specific system, and he's just come in, got the game time, and just pressed on. And he seems to be getting more and more confident and better with each game as it goes on. And he's taken on a real responsibility, playing in a poor Chelsea side, playing in the number 10, and playing so well. So yeah, his ceiling, he's just got to keep playing with confidence, and he could press on, and he could be sitting in people's sort of team of the season come the end of the year. Probably going to be Chelsea's player of the season if he keeps it up. And for how much they spent on him, 45 million, a player of his age, and how good he looks already. Really, really good signing.
Yeah, it seems an absolute bargain. I remember at the time thinking like, oh my god, Chelsea have overspent here. It's another City graduate with a lot of prospect, but who knows what's going to happen. But this one was clearly hands down a slam dunk. What a signing it's been. And arguably, Todd Boehly's best signing under his era for Chelsea. And I just think to myself that, if you can put some really good players in and around him, and you can get some of the other players fit back for Chelsea, that, sky's the limit. But again, we say this every week, so there's no need to get carried away. We know what's likely to happen. We just need to put a bit more consistency to it. Luton, unlucky, but obviously, had a better XG in the game than Chelsea, surprisingly. An XG of 2.53 compared to Chelsea 1.5. Didn't take the chances on the day, and arguably could, if they had started a bit earlier, they could have found themselves in the ascendancy. But they're really making a fight of it. They're not going to go away anytime soon. And I think players like that of Alfie Doughty has really come into his own, playing left back, right back, left wing back, right wing back, now playing on the wings as well. I think Kabore didn't have a great game today, but he's been really good so far this season. I also think Ross Barkley has been revolutionary in the midfield, getting a goal today from the corner from Alfie Doughty, coincidentally. But I think, there's a lot about the Luton side to like. The only issue I see myself with them staying up is who's going to be the other team to go down. Could it be Everton with a points deduction? They've been in a terrific run of form, maybe. Could it be Nottingham Forest? I doubt it now that Nunes come in and they've got the new manager bounce. I don't really see who's going to go down in their place. But where do you see Luton going forward? Do you see them making any changes in the January transfer market to try and reinforce the side? Or do you think they're going to stick with the players that they have?
I think you've summed it up really, really well. I think they are playing well, Luton. The only change I would make is to be a bit more confident and really go for games, because we've seen that they are able to do it. In terms of additions in January, I don't think we're going to see any standout signings. I don't think they quite have the money to be able to do so. I think we'll probably be seeing more squad players. I think a bit more impact from the bench could be good. Sort of a young, tricky winger on loan from potentially a bigger club would do the player well. It's a really good, I think, opportunity for players to join there. Be someone who comes off of the bench in those last 20, 30 minutes, I think could be really good for Luton. I don't quite think they have that, really. The only sort of player I can think of who has had that is maybe Chong. Obviously, they signed from, I can't remember if it was from Man United or Birmingham, one of the two. He came on at half-time and he made a really, really good impact. So I think someone like that, but potentially a winger, could be good for Luton. And it's a shame because, like you said, I think they probably deserve to stay up, but I would probably still put them as to go down just because I think the teams above them are a bit better. So unless another team goes on a poor run of form, it might not be a good result for them come the end of the season, which is such a shame because they have been brilliant.
Yes, completely agree. And someone who isn't doing well so far this season is me in Tenable. Yes, it is that.
Look at that. Look at that transition.
Yes, I've been practicing. Can you tell? Oh my god, my transitions were so poor towards the back end of the podcast last time. So I was just like, you know what? Let me practice. And you teed me up perfectly because you are winning a Tenable so far. You are on 61 points. I am on 58. And I've got a lot of catching up to do because we're running out of Tenables, aren't we?
We are, yes. Today's episode will be the penultimate episode of the Tenable season before we do a bumper 3 rounds of Tenable to finish off the season next time. So as you said, 57 to 61. I have a very slender 4-point lead, which could all change, especially with next week. So we've got 4 rounds of Tenable left, 40 points up for grabs, so all could change.
Did you say 57 or 58?
57 to 61.
Oh, I had 58 written down. Oh, God, I should have made your quiz a bit harder this week then. Yeah, were you about to ask me if I'd like to go first or second? Was that it before I interrupted?
I was.
Okay, because I'm already behind and I don't want even more pressure of you doing well. So I think I'm going to go first and hopefully do well and then set the bar high and apply the pressure to you, I think.
Okay. So,
right,
Mevin,
get my little typer ready.
You have 5 minutes to name the top 10 Premier League appearances for Liverpool.
Oh no!
Now,
Jamie Carragher, top number 1.
Jamie Carragher is number 1 with 508.
Oh, the funny thing is, I was just thinking to myself, like, what topics would Toby ask me? And I was thinking about just doing some research on this topic, and I didn't.
Did some revision.
Yeah, but I was just like, if I do that and then I just get like 10 out of 10, it'd be boring, wouldn't it? So let's go with, I'm sure he's up there, Steven Gerrard.
Steven Gerrard is number 2 with 504.
504, not too far away. He's been there for a long time, and I think he's on like 300 odd. I will go with Jordan Henderson.
That is a great shout. He is number 3 with 360. I was surprised it was that many.
Yeah. I think I was watching Stick to Football the other day with Gary Neville, and I think they mentioned Jordan Henderson, the amount of appearances he had, and I was like, whoa, that's a bit more than I expected.
Nice.
So 300. Right, now it gets a bit more tough. Premier League, right?
Just Premier League, yep.
I'm trying to think. Players who've been there years.
I was going to go all time, but there was a few names that I had never heard of.
Yeah,
so I thought that would be quite harsh.
There's a few greats of the game who would be a bit harder. I'm trying to think of players who've been there for years and years and years, and my head just can't go away from him. So I'm going to say him. I would like to go for Sami Hyypiä.
Sami Hyypiä is number 4. You're working your way down the list. He had 318 appearances.
318. Good to know. Okay. I'm struggling now. The issue is there are too many names. Yeah, there's so many names that it could be.
You have got your 3 lives and just under 3 minutes left.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Let's go for... I'm not sure this is right, but let's go for... let me write them down. I'm going to write down John Onorisa. I'm also going to write down Glenn Johnson. I don't know why, but as fullbacks, I feel like they would have played a lot of games. I also want to write down Skirtle and Agger. Well, I'm not... Agger, but he was injured a lot. I would also... Goalkeepers, I think Allison might be there. I'm not sure about Rayner. Dudek. Oh, God, we've had some awful... he was a great goalkeeper. We've had a lot of goalkeepers. So I'm not sure.
Okay, you're coming up to 2 minutes left now.
Yeah, let's go with Alisson Becker.
Alisson Becker, unfortunately, is not tenable. He's outside the top 20 because I have the other 10 written down as well.
Okay. Let's then go for Martin Skirtle.
Martin Skirtle is tenable. He is 9th place with 242. So I'll give you a clue that the 10th place is 240. So you're looking for 240 plus Premier League appearances.
240 plus. Okay, come on. Let's go with Dirk Kuyt.
Dirk Kuyt, unfortunately, is not tenable. He is 18th on the list.
18th, my God. Ugh. I'm going to write down Milner, but I don't think it's Milner.
Just over a minute left.
God. Oh, there's another Liverpool one you give me. Another one I'm going to embarrass myself on. Talk about trying to apply pressure. Jeez, what the hell is this? I've only got 1 life left as well.
1 life, but 2 incorrect guesses. So
I'm going to go Pepe Reina.
50 seconds. Pepe Reina is number 5. He is tenable. 285.
285. Jesus Christ. 4 players. Come on.
30 seconds left on the clock. So you've got 2 incorrect guesses before you're cut off. So I'd chuck some names in there.
I don't think he's there. Robbie Fowler.
Robbie Fowler is number 6, 266 appearances. 15 seconds left. 8, 7, 6, 5.
Say someone.
3,
Agger.
2, 1. Agger, unfortunately, is not tenable. I don't think he's in the top 20 either, unfortunately. He's not on my list of backups.
I couldn't think of names. Right, hang on.
I will go from 20th just because I got them written down. So, Mane, Robertson, Kuyt, David James, Michael Owen, Trent Alexander-Arnold, James Milner, Redknapp, Reese and Salah are the 10 names that missed out.
Oh, Reese just missed out. Okay.
Yeah, so you got 7. The 3 names you were looking for were 2 Brazilians.
Firmino?
Firmino was 1.
Fabinho. No, not Fabinho.
No, it's a defensive midfielder.
Oh, Lucas.
Lucas Lavia, unlucky.
Yeah.
He was number 8. And the last one was a commentator. Some people
Oh
like
my
him,
god, is
some
it
people
Redknapp?
hate him.
Is it Redknapp?
Who was that, sorry? Redknapp was 13th on the list. It was Steve McManaman, was number 10.
Oh, God.
With 240.
So I missed the 2 Brazilians and Steve McManaman.
Yeah, so 7's a decent score. 7 is a good score.
Yeah, I was trying to think that like Klopp era, well, not just Klopp, like pre-Klopp era, who ended up still being Klopp era. I should have.
Puts you up to 64.
Oh dear, yeah, it does. It's okay. Thankfully, I did go slightly harder with yours, but I still think you still get like 6 to 8. So what am I on now? 64.
Okay, I'm just going to blow my nose before we start my round of Tenable because
Yes, I will. Yes, I'll mute you. Don't worry. I feel like I should have got Lucas definitely. Steve McManaman, he did go to Real Madrid. But yeah, Lucas definitely should have got. And Firmino, I should have maybe had him. I literally should have thought of him before I thought about the likes of the others. But yeah, it is what it is. 3-point lead. How are your boogers, Tobes?
Right, I am ready.
Did you take your earphones out? Did you hear what I said?
I couldn't hear a word you were saying. I was getting a tissue.
That's fine. You can look forward to it when the episode comes out. Right, are you ready for yours then?
I am.
Okay, so this one's a bit complicated. So if you don't understand, let me know before I start the timer. Okay. So since we're in January now, I would like it is a transfer related one. I want you to name me the top 10 highest transfer fees paid for a Premier League player who then subsequently went abroad. Does that make sense?
Yes, so a UK based player signed for a non-UK club.
Yes. Your time starts now.
Cool. Ooh, okay. Right,
Actually, for transfer fees, not even players.
You want the fees?
No, I want the players, but the way I said it, I implied I wanted the fee.
I was going to say, that would be impossible. The first name that came to my head was Gareth Bale, so I'm going to go for him.
Yes, he is third, Spurs to Real Madrid. I've got this in euros, by the way, 101 million euros.
Okay. Ooh. Okay. I think... Right, who else is there? I'm trying to think of recent. Because the inflation of players has been mental recently, so they all must be fairly recent. Harry Kane, I think he'll probably be on there.
Yes, he is tenable. He's number 2, 95 million euros. Sorry. Did I say number 2 or number 4? He's number 4.
You're right, I was going to say, yeah, if 95 is definitely less than 100.
Yeah, he's 4th.
Who else? Hazard.
Yes, he's second, 115 million euros. Chelsea to Real Madrid.
Okay, nice. I'm going to go for Lukaku when he went to Inter. I can't remember if it was a lot or how much it was.
He is number 7, 74 million euros. Chelsea to Inter Milan.
Who else have we got? I'm trying to think of players who've probably gone to Madrid. Number 1, I think will probably be Coutinho, won't it?
It is Felipe Coutinho, 135 million euros. What a waste of money that was.
What an awful signing. Okay, so that's 5. Right, so who are we looking at? Any other Madrid or Barca players? I feel like just because they spend so much. This is tough. Or maybe it's better to think of the players who have left. I really apologise for this horrible coughing and cold stuff. It's cold season.
It'll be that helps me win Tenable this week.
Yeah. Oh. Right, let's think of anyone who's left Arsenal for big money. There's obviously Fabregas. I don't think was enough, and Omri. I don't think were enough. Chelsea players who have left Chelsea. Oh, PSG did sign David Luiz for a big chunk back in day. Let's go David Luiz. It's a fun one.
That's your first life gone. Is not tenable.
Damn. Okay. How long have I got?
You got 2 minutes.
Okay.
4 names.
Any others from Tottenham? Not that I can think of. Any people left City for a lot? Again, I don't think so. They're just more of a signing club, aren't they? City. Any players left United for a lot of money? This is tough. I'm missing one of the big teams. Liverpool. Any players who have left Liverpool for a lot of money in recent years? Again, not many that I can think of. God, I'm really struggling here. PSG. Surely PSG have got some players they spent a decent chunk of. But again, not that I can think of. No, this is really, really poor.
Right, how many are you on? You've got 5.
I got 5. I'm going to kick myself at a lot of these as well, I know it.
Think leaving Man United.
Leaving Man United. Paul Pogba obviously left on a free. Any thought? No. God, I cannot think at all. Was anyone recently who left Man United? I'm really, really struggling.
One of the GOATs.
Oh, bloody hell. I just completely forgot. It was so long ago. Ronaldo.
Yeah, he's 5. Think about someone else post-Fergie.
Oh, post-Fergie.
5.
Let's throw out and Herrera just because he went to PSG.
Nope, that is your time. It was not Ander Herrera. It was Angel Di Maria. I was trying to throw you away.
Ah, he was PSG though, wasn't he? So
yeah.
Damn, that was. I don't know how I completely forgot about Ronaldo. I was thinking of Ronaldo's transfers after he was at Real Madrid, which was just absolutely pointless.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was when you had Ronaldo and Di Maria, and I was just like, what's the best clue I can give you? But there was someone less obvious than Ronaldo, but more obvious than Angel Di Maria. He left Liverpool in the last decade.
Luis Suarez.
Yes, Suarez was number 6, 81.72 million. Ronaldo was 5th. Di Maria was 8th because you 70 got Lukaku. Number 9 and 10, they both left Chelsea in the last decade.
Chelsea. Courtois, was he enough?
No, I think attacking players.
No, not. Oh, Sterling. No, he was. No, he went to Chelsea, didn't he? And he was obviously in UK. Don't know. Let me know. Put me out my misery.
One was number 9 was Diego Costa to Atletico Madrid.
Wow, really? I would never have said that.
Yeah, it was a lot. And the last one, which was the most obscure, and I didn't actually expect you to get this one, was Oscar when he moved to China.
Ah, wow. Yeah, that's a throwback. That was the old, the pre-Saudi League, everyone going to China, wasn't it?
But the Chinese League was only the pre-Russian League, wasn't it? So
yeah, true.
remember Angie Mikulek something. That one.
Yeah. That's Chris Samba went there, didn't he? That was,
along with
Samuel Eto'o.
Yeah, Samba at the back, Eto'o up top. Yeah. So what do you get? You got 6
and Carlos was there as well for a bit.
Was he?
I think so.
Oh dear. So. 3, 4, 5. 6. But yes, only 6 in the end.
That narrows the lead down to 3 points.
From 4.
One there, so
despite the fact that I didn't feel like I did great, yeah, you still narrowed the lead.
It's close. It's very close.
It's close, yes. And like Toby said, next week there will be 3 different tenables from each of us to eat the other one. We got to make sure that we have an outright winner, and hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. And hopefully by the time we get to the third one, that we'll both still be in the race. Be a bit awkward if one of us has already won by then. But yeah.
Yes.
Should we move on then to the rest of the fixtures? Should we start by talking about Wolverhampton Wanderers 3, Everton 0? Surprising result considering the fact that Everton have done really well so far this season, despite the fact that they had a 10-point deduction. But Wolves were just the better team on the day and completely outclassed them.
Yeah, 2 sides who I think we've both been really impressed with so far this season. Perhaps our expectations of them being a little bit lower. I think Wolves, we didn't know at the start of the season where they were going to be ending up in terms of their manager, in terms of their financial situation. But since Gary O'Neill's come in, they have been absolutely fantastic. And again, we saw that just a really, really good performance. Again, that front line combining so well, but also looking so solid at the back. And like you said, against an Everton side who have been in great form in the last couple of games especially, and especially defensively, Everton have been so good. So for Wolves to be able to put 3 past them, put out a statement win like that, and keep climbing the table is really good to see.
Yeah, I think Everton defensively have been really good, but I thought on the day they were really sloppy, and I think that got highlighted by Wolves' attacking play, which was just excellent. I think I'm just in love with Hee Chang Wang. I mean, he's such a good player going forward. And I think that him and Cunha had a fantastic game linking up the play. Real Roberto Firmino vibes, not just because he's Brazilian, but just the way he plays is just so silky and so lovely to watch. And I think the fact that, with the boost for Wolves, the fact that Pedro Neto came back as well. So I think, Wolves, fantastic result for them. And, start going into the new year with the right type of result. Similar to Crystal Palace, who beat Brentford 3-1 on the day. Palace finally end their winless streak, and finally, they can get some points on the board with a fantastic performance by Eberechi Eze and Michael Elise linking up really well.
Yeah, the 2 standout players in there, the 2 players we look to. I think when we see a Crystal Palace goal go in, you think who scored it this time, Elise or Eze. Both, to have them both back now is absolutely huge for Palace. Will definitely be the sort of pivotal players in their attacking threat. It probably came at the right time. I think this Brentford fixture, Brentford have been struggling as of late. They're slowly slipping down, it seems. And Palace have been struggling themselves. So to get a good home win and to have this fixture at the right time with both those key players was a big part of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's unfortunate for Brentford because they've lost yet another game now. I don't think there's any pressure on Thomas Frank or this Brentford side. But it might just be quite interesting for the rest of the league because it might be a case in which Ivan Toney ends up remaining at Brentford for the remainder of the season, with the fact that Weiss is going to the African Cup of Nations. Mbeumo would have gone, but he's out injured at the moment in time. So they really are struggling, but I think they'll come good eventually. I don't think it's anything to worry about for Brentford fans. I think it'd just be nice, if anything, just for comfort, just to get 3 points sometime soon. We should then move on to the other 3-1 result of the weekend. It was Spurs 3, Bournemouth 1. Spurs with a fantastic performance just before Heung-min Son goes off to the Asia Cup. What did you like about Spurs today?
Yeah, I think it is worrying that Son is going to go, and I think we could see a drop in their form. He's such a key player for them. In terms of positives, I think they have their defensive shape back a little bit more. I think now that obviously can see Porro and Udogie sort of been playing the last 4 or 5 games together. They look a lot more solid at the back. Especially against a good Bournemouth side who are in fantastic form, probably one of the best forms in sort of the last 7 or 8 games in the entire league. So I think that's a good positive for them. A good attacking performance again from Spurs. For me, it will just be question marks now. What will that front 4 look like? We'll sort of probably be Richarlison, Brennan Johnson, Kulusevski and probably Breen Gill coming into the side perhaps. I would be worried a little bit if I was a Spurs fan, but they're still playing really well, still have a good side, so hopefully they can still put in the performances despite his absence.
Yeah, and I think they will, to be fair. I think, like you said, they've got a lot of quality elsewhere in the squad, and they've still got returning players like some Maddison. Kulusevski's got a bit of a little knock at the moment in time, but I think they'll be fine. I think, they'll come. Heung-min Son will come back to a team who are ready, up for it, and fighting for a top 4 challenge. And then the final game is Manchester City 2, Sheffield United 0. Manchester City, who are of course Club World Cup champions, got that lovely little golden badge. on their t-shirt. Not something you know about being an Arsenal fan, Toby, but what did you make of that result?
Well, we don't need the gold badge. We've got the gold Prem trophy, so we can carry on milking that for the next 20 years as we have the last 20. But yeah, City, good result, good victory over Sheffield United. I don't think too many talking points to take away. I think a result we expected. Julian Alvarez getting a goal in Haaland's absence. He's still to come back. De Bruyne back in training, which is very scary. We've got two of probably the best players in the world to come back. So, yeah, let's look forward to that crazy Man City winning streak that everyone talks about.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all got that to look forward to. I think the rest of the teams are really going to struggle against Man City. I think, with a Club World Cup win, they'll come back buoyant, hungry for more trophies. And, wouldn't be surprised if they put on, like you said, a unbeaten run from now to the end of the season. Wouldn't be surprised. And, of course, Haaland and De Bruyne will come back as well, like you said. But yeah, Sheffield United, I think it's a fixture in which they don't expect to get anything from this away to Man City at the Etihad. The fact that they only lost by 2 is anything, a little bit of a consolation, but still rock bottom of the Premier League table. Things really need to improve drastically if things are going to change for Sheffield United and Chris Wilder since he's come back in charge of the Blades. I think that's it for this week's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast, rounding up game week 20 in the Premier League. Not many more game weeks to go. We're almost we've passed halfway now. What are you most looking forward to in 2024, Toby?
I am most looking forward to Arsenal-Liverpool in the FA Cup next weekend because Mo Salah won't be there, which is nice.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, to be fair, I'm worried about that game. And to be fair, it's actually kind of nice to have the FA Cup next weekend. It's a nice little break from the Premier League since it's been all Premier League for a few weeks now. But like you said, I think Arsenal could end up doing Liverpool. But don't you all fret watching at home or listening because we will be covering the biggest games in the FA Cup on the weekend, but also be having a special for you because there'll be no Premier League fixtures for us to round up on. So with that, we'll also have our Tenable for you to look forward to as well. Our Tenable Bonanza, I think we're going to call it, or I've started calling it this podcast.
You've decided just now.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good name for it, really. A Tenable Bonanza. But yeah.
It is going to be a bonanza.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot to look forward to. And, hopefully you guys will be joining us on the Football Fellowship podcast throughout the rest of 2024 because we're not going anywhere and we're only going to be getting bigger and better. If you're listening to us on Spotify, please give us 5 stars and let your friends know. Answer our questionnaires. Let us know what you think. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Anything else to say, Tobes?
Just thank you very much for joining us once again, and hopefully we will see you in the next one.